I spent the morning with Russian television station REN TV, filming some segments for a news show that they're working on. REN is one of the largest private federal TV channels in Russia. They're kind of like our CNN. They're pretty big. Inside Russia, they've got this network of more than 400 independent broadcasting companies, but they broadcast in over a dozen different nations. I think their viewership is around 120 million people. Well, anyway, I was interviewed by REN about, I guess it was 6 weeks ago, for a special that they're doing on September 11th, and they brought me in to talk about the CIA connections to the attacks and some stuff like that. Well, anyway, last night I was on the phone talking with someone that you all might know as Queen Tut. This is the lady who has worked with George Webb and Jason Goodman in the past. She's a really sharp lady. Well, while we were talking, I guess it was around 11 o'clock, roughly 11 p.m., I got a call from REN TV producer Natalia, who I've done some work with in the past. She's the blonde lady in this photo over there on the right. Well, she said that REN TV was doing a show on the Asia Pacific Economic Conference that's taking place over in Da Nang, Vietnam. She asked me if I could help them out with a segment on the story. So, long story short, we spent the morning filming an interview at my home. What I thought was interesting is the nature of the interview questions gives some insight into what is on the minds of the Russian people. While the general topic of the interview was the APEC conference, really what we focused a lot on was why Donald Trump didn't meet in a sit-down meeting with Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, because Putin had wanted very much to sit down with Trump and talk about these things of mutual concern, stuff like the conflict in Syria, where we've got U.S. and Russian troops sitting on opposite sides of the Euphrates River with guns pointed at each other. You know, it would be a nice thing if our two leaders would sit down and talk about that. And Putin's team was under the impression, based on what Trump himself had said, they were under the impression that the president was going to take time during the conference to have that sit-down meeting with Putin, but it didn't happen. So anyway, REN TV asked me several questions related to that. Let me play a clip here with this is one of the answers that I gave to one of the questions. If President Trump and President Putin were to actually sit down, their positions would actually have a significant amount of convergence. What I mean by that is the two men share many of the same geopolitical goals. However, those are not the goals of other people within the Washington, D.C. establishment. And so those within the D.C. establishment, what you would call the swamp, are seeking to prevent the two men from meeting and collaborating together on things that could bring about meaningful solutions to significant world problems facing our two nations. So we have this idea that the United States needs to compete in the world, but we don't want to become watered down, so to speak. We want to be strong. We want to be independent. We want to have good bilateral relations with Russia and with other nations such as China, with the members of APEC and so forth, but not at the expense of U.S. sovereignty. And that is Donald Trump's philosophy. And that is the reason that he is having so much trouble right now in working with President Putin. That's because the globalist establishment is seeking at every turn to upend or to slow down that nationalist agenda in favor of the globalist agenda, which heavily favors multinational corporations, oil companies, and military-industrial complex corporations. We also talked about the trade imbalance between the United States and China, and I talked about how these big trade deals like NAFTA and TPP, they're never good for the American worker. It always ends up costing us jobs that get sent overseas. So I've uploaded a few more clips from that interview to Patreon as a bonus for my patrons. And if any of you who have made donations to me through PayPal or any other methods and you want the links to that bonus video, just send me an email at jake@morphonios.com. And one last thing about that. Whoever out there gave me that anonymous Bitcoin payment yesterday, that was very generous. Thank you very much. I wanted to send you an email to say thanks, but I don't know who you are, but thank you. Well, anyway, after this interview was over this morning, I had the chance to hang out for a while with the videographer, and we just talked shop for a while because since I do my own videos, I had some questions for him about his lighting equipment and other stuff. We also talked a little bit about my investigative work, and the subject of intimidation tactics came up. So Austin is his name. I walked him outside and I showed him, once again, one of the tires on my van has been punctured, which is now the 9th time that this has happened. And I know this is kind of a joke to some people. Oh, he keeps popping his own tires. I'm not popping my own tires. But anyway, no, for those that are going to ask, this is not the same tire. It's not that I've got something wrong with a rim or something like that. I've now had nails, screws, or knife blades stuck into all 4 of my van tires and 2 of my car tires. These screw and nail punctures, they haven't all resulted in my tires going flat immediately. Like with a knife blade, that immediately, the tire went flat. But several times what has happened is the screws have stayed in the tire without me even knowing that it was in there, and it would pop out kind of forcefully while driving out on the road, which would cause the tires to go flat really quick. And that's not good. And to those that are asking, yes, I do have security cameras, but no, nothing was caught on camera, not that I've been able to see. And so that kind of suggests to me that this vandalism might be happening, some of it at least, might be happening when my vehicles aren't parked in my own driveway, because the security cameras I have, they do have night vision, and I'm just not seeing anything. So if you got any ideas, let me know. But anyway, and by the way, if anyone in North Carolina ever needs a freelance videographer for a project, contact me and I'd be glad to pass you along to Austin. I think that maybe hearing what kind of work I do and seeing the vandalism to my van may have spooked him a little bit. So I doubt he wants me to publish his full name and his personal information on my channel. Not that I blame him, because remember, the Las Vegas Uber driver that I interviewed a handful of weeks ago, Mark, you guys saw after doing our interview, somebody followed him into a casino resort parking lot. They broke open the gas lid and poured water into his tank, messing things up. So I don't blame Austin for wanting to be cautious. Okay, well, I'm going to end this video by playing a couple of short clips from a different documentary that Ren TV did with me a little while back. I talked mostly about the CIA's involvement in the 9/11 attacks and about how the evidence that supports the argument in Vegas about multiple shooters, that's actually a very legitimate theory, and one that I actually believe. So we talked about the Vegas massacre in that. Well, anyway, I've kept the clips really short to avoid triggering any kind of automated copyright claim on the material, but you might enjoy watching it for a second, hearing them dub Russian over my English. Well, I hope you guys have a great Saturday night. Thanks so much for your support. Take care.
Больше одного стрелка. Минимум 2. Если вы Ясно, что он заранее знал об этих атаках.
11 сентября.
У меня
Без страхового договора.
как только торговый этажный небоскреб, здание номер 7 Всемирного торгового...
Они выгодны.
Возможно, лас-вегасский стрелок Стивен Пэддок
Почтенному, обеспеченному господину расстреливать толпу властить импорт оружия. Расстрел в Лас-Вегасе стал самым массовым убийством в истории США. Могло стоять ЦРУ.
разведывательное...